Hello, sports fans. Welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show. We have a great time every day. The best part about our day is when we have guests on, and we have my favorite guest in the entire world, Herman Moore, legendary NFL wide receiver, longtime Detroit Lion. I'm telling you, this guy was always open. And once you figured out that he was always open, it was always fun to throw him the football. Herman, welcome to the Down and Dirty. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. I was going to say my captain, but my QB. How you doing, man?
As I said earlier, I'm living the dream. It's not a nightmare, at least not yet. So I don't have a lot to complain about. I understand that I've been trolling you recently. So you've been doing these trading card things and signing helmets, and apparently I keep showing up in these events that you're going at. Please do tell.
Oh yeah, it's people will come back, and I keep telling you this, and I know you and we have some conversations here and there. But the fans, man, I think those who appreciated what you were able to do and just your professionalism, the way you carried yourself, the way you were as a quarterback is coming out more so here. As the fact that you're not here, I'll let it live vicariously through me to you. But yeah, they bring me up and go, here's something I want to give you that something that's Scott Mitchell based. It could be a picture, it could be a card. I already got your jersey, and I got my signed Scott Mitchell jersey, and we've been procuring and getting a lot of the highlights. I'm going, man. I look at the passes. You need to go back. I'm gonna give you access to the database that Chrissy's been building, and the highlights, man, just are phenomenal.
I just go back to my youngest son when I took him to we went to a reunion. In fact, it was the time when you were inducted into the Lions Ring of Honor, and we were at a banquet and they were showing highlights. And here's my son, who wasn't even born when I was playing, and he was watching this video, and so he'd look up at the video, and then he'd look at me and because I'm throwing passes to Herman Moore, and he's trying to he goes that's you like, and he's like, Dad, you were like as good as Matthew Stafford. And so it was just a really fun time for my son to figure that out. Now when we left, he said, could I get a jersey? And I said, well, of course, because they gave him one of my jerseys, and he said, could I get like a Herman Moore? I said, like, what do you want, Herman Moore? You want Barry Sanders? What do you want? And he goes, no, I want Matthew Stafford. And he said, because he's relevant today, and my friends will think I'm cool. And so,
oh, wow.
So I was like, all right, I hate you. You're grounded. You're grounded until you're 20.
You should have brought me in on that, man. And I could have gave him a little bit of that old school discipline from down south. It'd been all right.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Zach's a good kid. So, I have to ask you first, because I'm really fascinated by this. I thought, I made these predictions at the beginning of the NFL season about the Detroit Lions, and I really thought the Lions were going to kind of fly under the radar this year, and they were going to be the team. I really thought the Lions were going to go to the Super Bowl. I really did this year. So they were my pick. And it looked early on like they kind of had things going, but it just seemed to slip and slip and slip. Dan Campbell takes away the play calling duties from his offensive coordinator. What happened to the Lions this year?
I think it was just they got off to a really good start. I think injuries, you can't discount that. Every team deals with it, but the Lions, they got hit in certain areas that were key. The secondary in particular, because they had a couple Pro Bowlers at safety that were going down, and then they have a first a rookie guy or a first year guy that they've been trying to get acclimated for a couple years now. And so it's been one of those deals where you seem like you're solidifying certain areas of the offense or defense, and then a key component of that goes down, and it causes you to have to shift a little bit. But on top of that, I think there wasn't the greatest of execution by this team. They fell into lulls. They didn't play complete games where they were playing, for a quarter here, then they go flat, and then it's speeding back up. So it was the ups and downs, the ebb and flows of just trying to get things done and get things started that caused them to have that problem. So that's if I had to gear it down to that, it was that, and then it gets complicated when the switch happens at offensive coordinator, and Coach
Yeah.
Campbell takes over calling and play calling. And then at that point, it seemed like they really never gelled again, not due to him, but I just think they was just out of sync.
Uh, it, I've heard rumors, or it may have been reported that Mike McDaniel, who was fired as the head coach for the Dolphins, ended up going and interviewing with the Lions. One, is that accurate? And two, does that make sense? Would that be a good fit?
You know what? I can't confirm it, but the all indications and publications and media around here stated that he was in for a visit. How well that went, I don't think that's been really talked about yet. I know he has other teams to visit with. I think it would be a good fit personally. A lot of people, the concern was, you taking a former head coach and he comes into a system and he's under another head coach. How, does that create an issue? I don't think
Right.
it does, because there's a professionalism that happens there. As a head coach, what the hierarchy is. So it's not like I think he would overstep. And if he did, that would be egregious, because he understands how the order works. But as an OC, and knowing what his past background is, and given the chemistry of this team, I think he would be a good fit personally. But it's only you can't, you have to wait till you see. We played with different coordinators. You know how that works.
Right.
It on the surface it could seem like the right idea, but then when you get in and you actually start working with people, we are professionals, so we know if it's a good coordinator or not. Forget what fans are saying. Forget what the media thinks. The players are going to know.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a guy, because on one side of it, when I heard this, I'm like, oh, that'd probably be nice for Dan Campbell. You have a guy who's had head coaching experience, has a lot of experience. He can really be a resource in a lot of areas. He can relate to you. He can, you can talk about kind of how do you handle certain situations and dynamics and things like that. But then on the other side of it, you go, yeah, could this guy undermine me? He's a guy that, he's licking his wounds because he's now this former head coach, and he wants to prove himself, and he's got an axe to grind, and all of a sudden he becomes this cancer within the organization, and it's certainly one of those kind of two-edged swords type of situations. It could go either way. I think it would be a challenging thing for a head coach to kind of figure out, and how to kind of weed through all of that stuff. Uh, and I've really liked Dan Campbell and loved what he's done with the Lions, and I'm just always cheering for him and of course, for the Lions. But he lost Ben Johnson, lost Aaron Glenn. Was that an impact on the way the season went, and how did fans, how did coaches, how did the team react to, because those are some big losses.
I think there were definitely impacts, but I want to go back real quick to one thing you were saying there. When you talk about the undermining or what may happen with a coach, think of dating, right? It's like everyone
Right.
says the right things in the beginning. You come out, you've identified, hey, we have some attraction. There's an opportunity, but then you get in there, dynamics change, because you really get to uncover who the people really are, and then you have to have adaptability. You have to be able to have communication, and then you got to like each other. You got to have, all those things have to work. It's the same thing. But to your point on the next two guys, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn both leaving, taking opportunities to go other places, did have, I think, initially some effect, because these are the guys that had the team humming. They knew the players that came in. They were part of the development process of these players. So you get to know them intimately, but you get to know them in a very defined, detailed way. So that development, you know what to avoid, you know how to make things go. You bring in someone new, they then have to kind of learn that, even if they've been in a position on the team, you don't really get to work with them at that level. And you know how that is. You work directly with your position coaches. You work directly with the OC on coordinating play calling and things of that nature, and getting you set up in schemes. And when those guys left, I think they took with them some of the confidence that these players have in the event that something goes wrong, that it's going to get turned around pretty quickly. So adaptability and adjustments are key in the NFL. And I think that's what this team kind of fell behind this year with.
A lot of coaching changes, a few surprised. I was a little surprised by Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. I get, Are there any coaching changes that you have seen this year that surprised you, yeah, how did you feel about was it a surprise that Tomlin stepped down?
I think both. If you look at the AFC North, those two teams, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, both head coaches, guys that had long-standing success with their teams and organizations, have built, culture, chemistry, rapport, not only with the fan base, the organization, but the players, the expectation coming in, and it's going to be different when you've had that tenure for that length of time. When you bring in someone else, you are starting over, and it's more than just guys coming in to call plays and running a team. It's that whole piece that's been built over a decade plus, going on 2 decades with those two. So those were probably the two that jumped out the most. And the surprising part about that is because these are the two that will have the least concern in terms of getting employed with another team. If they wanted to go in and take over two head coaching jobs that are available right now, it's not going to be a second guess for them. So I don't see where the grass is greener for both teams when they look at the coaches that are available. So that in itself was more surprising than anything, because I don't see how they're going to level up and scale up from the coaches that they're letting go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're like, okay, these guys have had a lot of success for a long time, and the 2 most successful teams and coaches in that division, who, by the way, played each other the last game of the year to see who made the playoffs. They're both gone right now. It just kinda blows my mind. It's like, I think of our time in Detroit, and it's like, what if we had a coach that we won at least 10 games a year, for 19 years? Would you think the Lions fans would, like, boo that guy out of town? I mean, what I don't know. It just what is success? What kind of success, I guess, do you have, or is it ever possible to have enough success to ever stay around?
When you've won championships and you've been to the Super Bowl and you've had MVPs and all defensive player of the year players and offensive player of the year and perennial Pro Bowlers and all pros, that's what you're dealing with those two organizations, those teams. And then when you go in, the standard becomes, look at the Super Bowl trophies, look at
Yeah.
what it looks like and feels like to be a champion. The difference in what we had even in Detroit, we were still trying to find identity, to just find stabilization, and we couldn't get that because it was always a battle between whether or not to pay players, whether or not to, you didn't. It wasn't about keeping your best players; it was about keeping your payroll right and keeping your numbers right, and then justifying costs for people versus going through a process. And the teams that have endured that and have gone through the process and understand that you have to start and you're going to go through some rough patches, but the longer you stick with it, the more the return will be. The Lions finally caught on to that, and in the last few years, and they've had some other coaches that have come in that want to do that. Other organizations think they have that figured out, but when your organization is at the bottom, I can understand the volatility. But when your organization has consistently performed, and you're having coaches that have never finished under 500, or they've had 9 and 10 win plus seasons repeatedly, and anything less than that is not even remotely acceptable. Where do you go from there? And now that's going to be the question. The pressure is now going to be on the organization and those that are making these changes to that pressure coming in for the next coaches coming in is going to be high. I mean, those two jobs right there, yes, they're going to be the most coveted, but they're going to come with the biggest scrutiny, the most pressure than any. And I think Baltimore more so than Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah. Back when we played, I approached the Lions and said, Can you just pay me, like, for the next 20 years?" Like, I was, like, trying to get creative about, my situation, so you could play players, or you could, I was like, "Can we get creative here? Can we figure out a way to defer compensation, to do something?" And they claimed that you couldn't do it, but I believe there was someone in the NFL who recently actually did that. I know there's the Bobby Bonilla, day where he gets $1 million for, like, the next 25 years or whatever, and I'd have been willing to do, I mean, I was willing, because I went in and I said it, because for me, it was, I I wanted to win, and that was it. I mean, that there was nothing more to it to me than I just wanted to win and figure out how to do it. That being said, you look at contracts today, and I
Don't
want
do
you to be honest with me. Aren't you just a little envious of players today? Like, just a
I,
little bit?
it's I'm not so much envious of the players as much as I'm upset with the system, because it's not like all of a sudden the talent level has exploded to a level where the compensation's there.
Yeah.
Um, I get the evolution of the sport. This has always been a multi-billion-dollar organization. The franchises have always been highly profitable, especially from the 90s going forward. When you started getting more television contracts, you started getting all these different sponsorships and partnerships and multi-year deals with a lot of your tech companies and mobile companies and media companies. So the money has been flowing for a while. The distribution of that has always gone to, the owners. It's gone to others, and building stadiums and those things. But the players in our era and even before, um, we didn't get to receive that. And while we had to fight for what we thought at the time, which were big dollars, it pales in comparison to now. Like, a Barry Sanders contract is, you're at the bottom of the barrel for the most part on most teams, and it's not even showing up on their cap numbers carrying. Whereas we had to fight for those numbers, and then as you go forward, um, it's not so much an envy piece of the players as much as the game. I think could have always done more. There could have been better guarantees that we fought for and those things. And because we didn't have those, I think that created locker room dissension. I think that created some uproar and some problems between players and organizations that are long lasting. Some of those are never going to heal with players and organizations. So it's unfortunate, but now I think the careers are shorter, and I think the players are having much more visibility, have much more access to opportunity because of the way things have kind of shaped out. And but there's never really that big reach back to say, okay, how do we reach back to the entire population of the players to give them opportunities going forward? More so, it's just those marquee names continue to be put up and placed in that spotlight.
Is there a player, someone who could represent the players? You know, you have the Players Association, and there's been a lot of questions about, kind of how that's been handled and the relationship between the players and the owners. Is there a player out there that would represent what we're talking about here, maybe in the best light? Or because they always seem to get someone, they had Gene Upshaw and then kind of went away from former players to, I don't know who these people are, but I don't know. I know I'm just kind of throwing that at you, but is there anyone that jumps off the page that might be a good representative for players?
My conversations being a business owner and entrepreneur now, the business of sports is something I could talk all day about, because for someone to represent the players, they have to have a certain high level of character and understand that they can't succumb to the pressure of the politics and wanting to self-serve. You have to be willing to sacrifice your credibility with the league, with the teams, with access to certain things to do what is right for the whole. And that's the toughest part. We live in a society, we live in a world where people are, they're going to, when it comes down to elevating themselves versus elevating the whole, if they're not built like that, it won't work. And too often people come in with the right ideas and the right things, but if you throw enough opportunity, enough money, enough um, um, resources or really good things to those individuals, they seem to crater and cave in.
Yeah.
And when the road gets tough, you got to be willing to stay in there for the long run. And I don't know if players can do that, because they want to have so much connective tissue back to the organization and to partnerships and stuff like that. And the things that happen behind the scenes when you get into the business world, and anyone who's listening to this who understands business, they know the most egregious things are done behind the scenes. And it's done underneath the table. It's done out of sight because they don't want that trail coming back to show that they can control situations and spots. So you got to pick and choose where you play and where you roll. And like, again, if you bring in certain players to do that, I think they can't have an attachment or have anything that's going to tie them back to, if this doesn't work out, or if I have to become the bulldog for these players, I don't have to worry about what that's going to mean to me outside of doing business with this, the clubs or the organization, or having access.
Could you do it?
I could do it. I could do it
Would you want to do
because
it?
I would want to do it if the players understand that it's about the whole. You can't get in, and that's the concern. We know how
Yeah.
the human world works. As much as we want it to be perfect, as much as we want common sense to make sense, it won't, because people respond to emotion. They respond to whatever their personal situations are. I have no problem falling down to ground zero and building back from scratch if I had to, because that's how I'm built. But not every player is built like that. Not every person's built to sacrifice for others. And could I do it? Yeah. But would I have the confidence in the other people that I would need to depend on to help carry that torch with me to do it through and through? I think it's just too many people playing it in different places that disrupt, that allows it to happen. The machine's too big, is moving too hard right now for that. And this isn't me throwing them under the bus. This is just business. It's business.
Yeah.
If anyone's in it, they understand that there's good control that the power and the most powerful ones want to have, and they're going to maintain at any means necessary.
Yeah, it sure seems like, the NFL's in such a great position, and kind of having that relationship with and I don't know that any player is going to argue with kind of the salaries and where everything is, because it's a fertile ground for everyone. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's kind of some nefarious things that have been going on, and players' interests haven't been completely represented, and of course it still impacts all of the rest of us who are playing. I'm sure the fans out there are like, we don't care, we don't care what,
They
y'all
are.
got a good thing anyway. So I don't know. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah,
I
but it bleeds over, man. It's one
Yeah.
of those things where it's part of your legacy, it's part of your continue to want to do business with organizations that you've now gotten to know. Because when you're in the NFL, you get to know a lot of people, you get to know a lot of operations, you get to know a lot of how it works. So it becomes a natural opportunity and relationship to do business with, but it's so selective. And like right now, if we look at the NFL and go, who's going to get the next big opportunity off the field? It's not hard to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
It's a game plan for that. It's a
Right.
playbook for that. So it is what it is.
So I had a conversation the other day with Tom Moore, who, of course, was our offensive coordinator in Detroit when we had record-setting, led the NFL in offense, just incredible times, and it was such a great thing to do, just to chat with Tom. We hadn't talked in quite a while. He coached for 48 years, and he talked about a lot of things that I found fascinating. But one of I asked him, how his philosophy had developed over time, and um, one of the things that he brought up was our time in Detroit, and how he goes, he just kind of looked at me. He says, "You were in that meeting, and you know what happened, and we decided, let's put our 11 best on the field, and let's find one-on-one matchups, and we believe our people are better than other people, and let's kind of make this so it's not so complicated, and let players play." And that's what we did. And it was record setting. It was marvelous. First off, I'm just curious, what's your recollection of that time, and what are some of your fondest memories of our time together with Tom Moore and in Detroit?
But starting out, man, I have to always go back to the point of origin. That was when I was drafted in '91. And when I came in, it was an offense that was looking for an identity to get away from the run and shoot. So we had kind of a hybrid piece of that. People called it the Great Lakes offense prior to you coming in. And we were really trying to, solidify some things. We had the running game. It was always give the ball to Barry. That never changed throughout his tenure. But we were trying to find that complementary game that goes with it. So teams wouldn't, just stack the box. It wouldn't be a one-dimensional offense. And we try and move the needle. And we started to have some success. And then we figured that we get this big quarterback out of Miami, and we started to bring in different coordinators. We were bringing in different schemes. We were going to do some things differently. It obviously changed for me because I had a quarterback I could see. I had someone who had confidence. I had matured as a receiver. And that complementary piece was there. And we had pieces. We had Johnny, we had Brett, we had Dave Sloan. We started to get all these things in place. Now, you fast forward to the coordinator side of it. What I remember fondly was we start to simplify. And the simplification is what led to the greater return. And that was, if a guy's going to play off and the hitch route is available, throw the hitch. If they're going to play two deep coverage and we can find that crease and we could throw the slant and the safety's playing high enough, you throw the slant, you find the hole, right? We would throw dig routes and out routes. We would take what we wanted, but we would also use what the defense was allowing. And we would do it almost if it had to be boring. If we had to throw a hitch 10 times, we throw it 10 times. We just keep switching sides. And then me, Brett, and Johnny would bicker about who should get the next hitch route, right? Yards after the catch, we kept it in manageable down and distance. And then we'd hope that the running game would continue to give positive runs because, as great as Barry was, it could be one that breaks free, or it could be, a couple times where we try it, but we're going to be in 3rd and long, but that's okay. And ultimately, when you have such great players and a player like Barry that can just go from any direction, and then you got players who really wanted the ball, not guys that just wanted to be on the field. I mean, you had receivers who wanted the ball, and you had a quarterback that said, you know what, I'm here to make a mark. We had all the perfect things in place. And just to see that all of a sudden get imploded, because, again, I don't want to go back to the numbers game, to see it fall apart for literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And start to have it be dismantled. And then, coordinators coming in. And what I loved about Tom Moore, and it's interesting that you bring him up, and I recalled about him when we had our meeting and we all got together, it was to stop and say, listen, we're making this harder than it needs to be. And I think you were one of the main ones who brought it in and says, listen, we got to change this. This is just too complex. We just need to throw the ball. We just need to do what we need to do. And what I enjoyed was it wasn't about a certain offensive style or type as much as just it was simple. I can't explain it any differently, and it just made sense. Then after that we started bringing in all these coordinators. Everybody's got their style. They got to put their name on it. They played under this tree and that tree, and we used these type of players, and we got to get players that fit this, that, and the other. Versus saying, no, man, you got Pro Bowlers, you got all pros, you got top guys, you got division leaders and conference leaders. Why do we need to have it model you? Why can't you be the one that adjusts? And the ones that you've seen that have come in, you look at the coordinators that travel now. If they can adjust to the people that are there and then develop around that, they're successful. Not the ones that come in and go my way or the highway, and you know who they are.
So I got to tell you a funny story. So Johnny Morton, he was the 3rd wide receiver. So he was, he's out of USC, he's All-American. He played at USC, big deal. 1st round draft choice. And of course, there's Brett Perriman, who's a big deal, a phenomenal receiver. And there's Herman Moore, phenomenal receiver. Like, there's not a bad choice at all, like zero. And then you throw in Dave Sloan, Pro Bowl type. Like, there's nobody. The only guy who didn't want to catch the ball was Barry. He says, "Look, I don't catch the ball. I just run it." Right? I even asked him that
Other than
once.
screens, man. If you look at his yardage that he got from you, man, those screens were powerful because he had receivers blocking downfield for him.
Yards per catch for Barry, man, was amazing. And Johnny was frustrated, and he's like, "Look, so he sent me his highlight tape from when he was at USC. Like, he says, I want you to see this because I don't think he thought that I thought he was any good. And so he sends me this highlight tape, and it was legitimate, and he was dead serious about it. And I watched it, and he was good. And then he goes, "Could I have my highlight tape back?" And so I was like, "Sure." And I felt bad for him because it's like, who do you give the ball to? Like, really? And for me, I really kind of followed that kind of what you're talking about is who's ever open, whoever has the best matchup is the guy that's going to get it. And I, there's just not enough footballs to go. There's not enough downs in a game. There's not enough plays and all this stuff. And it just cracked me up, that he did this. And I always thought, that was a really funny thing. But you guys were massively competitive, and it was really fun to be a part of. And you bring up this thought about simplicity and I recently I heard Tom Brady talk about, this game isn't complicated. Like, if they're deep, throw it short. If they're short, throw it deep, you know? I mean, it's just not, and it really isn't anything more than that, and I think people overthink it, and I think that's one of the things that really kinda got etched in Tom Moore's brain, because it's what he brought up when we talked about it, and he said he kinda carried that with him, after he left, and he just had tremendous success. I mean, he just retired. It's just he's 87 years old. It's insane. Um, do you think the game's changed? Is it a different, I mean, I'm talking about X's and O's, is it different, or does it have to be simple like we're talking about?
It's the same, but it's just a hybrid now. You've brought a lot of things from the collegiate level up to the professional
Yeah,
level in terms of just the play calling and those type of things that coaches have gone in. It gives a little bit more, a little bit more flair. It gives a little bit more. But I have to be one of those guys that admittedly say when I look at the game, it's frustrating sometimes to watch because of the soft coverage. Is frustrating to watch when you see how simple the game is. It's not about the athleticism of the players today. It's just about in every era, you're going to move up. If we played in this era, we'd be a different,
right.
our physiques would be different. The way we train would be different. The way we eat would be different. Everything adjusts. So if you adjust up, you adjust down, right? And when I'm looking at the coverages and I'm looking at some of the things that are being done, it's hard unless a person has really played the game. And too often you get those that are just that are commentators, or those that are just speaking about it, but they've never really understood it. You can see how it's not complicated. It's a very simple game, and it's based on beating different people in front of you. It's based on running your scheme and executing. How to avoid penalties. Try not take risks when you don't have to. I mean, it's just it's a thinking game, and if you understand it, the players who get it excel. And those that are playing on emotion alone, you can't do that. The game isn't played just on emotion. It's played here, and it's played physically, and it's played with talent. It's a combination of all those things. So when I watch the game today, it's great to watch from an entertainment standpoint, but I just don't see the dynasties. I don't see where you have just through and through, from the defensive line, the linebacker unit, the secondary, the defensive coordinator is a historical guy that you're facing. Think about when you're playing a team and you're looking over and you got Tony Dungy. He's not the head coach at that time. He's a defensive coordinator. He's
Yeah.
known for his Tampa 2. And then you're looking at your linebackers and your safeties, your John Lynch and your Brooks and Hardy Nickerson, and then you got Sapp, and you got all these people. I mean, you can name names that are playing on these defensive ends, and it's even more. I'm leaving out guys, right? And then it just doesn't exist anymore. But yet we throw around the words like great and generational changing and all these things. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't do a disservice to guys, that were the pioneers of the game, and those that really were impactful people who changed it. And if anything, I'd say give them their due. I'm not even speaking about myself. I'm talking about like the guys that have really, when we grew up watching, they were iconic. They were the guys that made us want to believe in the game and play the game its way. Now it's about who's the guy calling the plays. Look at that. It's the coordinator. It's the
Yeah.
whatever. And it just takes it away from the skill set that's required by the players. And I don't think the detail is there as it used to be. And people can come for me for that. But, the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, well, you said a lot there. One of the things you said is about eating differently. I think I need to eat differently. I'd like to learn how to eat differently, because I like it. I love the food I eat, but it doesn't agree with me. It seems to stick around for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Listen,
I just
how long
want
you
to. I
plan?
just want
Hold
to
on.
look
First of
like
all, Scott,
you.
how long you plan on living? I'm
Uh,
not trying to be morbid, but listen, I'm trying to enjoy my life, man. If you want to eat, man, eat what you want to eat.
yeah, that's so.
You
My
want?
mom.
Hey, I'm coming back to Utah. We're gonna get ribs. When that came out, we had ribs.
Ooh, I should smoke some ribs for you, actually.
Come on, man.
Yeah. My mom, she passed away a couple years ago. And she was 87 when she passed away. She had a Coke every day. She drank Coca-Cola her whole life. She's just like, I mean, literally till the day she died, she was drinking Coca-Cola. So
That's like my
I'm,
mom. She
I'm
she got to have her Pepsi every day.
yeah, it's funny. So it, I can't I don't, people ask me all the time. They're like, "So who do you cheer for?" Right? Do you have a team? 'Cause, because I played on several teams in the league and whatever, and it's hard for me, like, do you have a team? Like, do you enjoy watching football, or do you look at it kind of from an analytical perspective, or, how do you I guess, how do you enjoy watching professional football?
Um, I enjoy watching um, matchups,
Yeah.
and they have to be strategic. It's almost like it's become like basketball to me right now. It's like I got to have a purpose to really want to watch the game. It's got to have some type of significant meaning, and it can't just be any game and every game's going to be a great game because it's not. Um, I enjoy watching our receivers. I enjoy watching, in particular, the Detroit Lion receivers. I really like these guys. I really like watching um, the locker room and just the camaraderie that they have. Watching just them, not even when they're on the field, even when they show them on the sideline, having conversations with each other, because it reminds me of the fun parts of the game that I enjoyed when I talked to Johnny and Brett, and I would sit there with you and Barry, and we'd sit there and talk, and even in tough times, talking about how we're going to come together and pull this thing out and make it work. Those are the things that I watch the game for, is more the nostalgic and the reminding piece. The entertainment factor doesn't heat up for me until it's something really on the line, and you start to see the team, because it seems like the gear changes, right? And they play at a
Yeah.
different level. The intensity is different. The game seems to have a little bit more meaning and purpose. So for me to be invested, I need to know that it's going to be that all through and through if I'm going to spend the time watching it. And I just know that it's not. Like it's a lot of up and down depending on who you're watching, which team you're watching, and drama that goes with it. And um, but it's entertaining either way. I don't know about you. I like going back watching a lot of. I watch probably more games of the past on demand than I watch real time.
Do you watch
Uh,
our games?
I've been collecting a library of those. I've been reaching out, man, to the NFL and reaching out to those who actually have access to that stuff that say they're going to give it to us. And I'm 4 years later, man. I'm still trying, but I look to get that footage, and then when I do watch it, and I know you've met Chrissy on this, but
Oh.
it was more of trying to not allow it to fade. So for my
Mm.
legacy and for my
Yeah.
kids, like you said, for them to have access, because once it's gone, it's gone. If you don't care about it, no one else will. And
Yeah.
you can't worry about what people think about you watching your own stuff and pulling for yourself and doing those things. If you can't be your biggest advocate in person, and you're concerned about what someone else thinks about that, then you're already behind the ball.
I've actually started watching old stuff. Like, there was a long time, it's like I couldn't watch, and then I started watching it, "Whoa, man, this is pretty good."
I'll ask you
And
this: when you watch it, do you ever do, like, one thing I've done now I've gotten older? I look back and I go, "Man, I wish I had done this or
oh
done that. I
gosh.
wish I would have." When I thought I was playing as hard, and every player can
Yeah,
say it, right? You go back
yeah,
and look at film. Any player that says, "You know what? I left it all on the field," you're a liar.
yeah.
Like, there's so many things I look at and I go, "Man, I wish I had a different attitude. I wish I had played a little bit more intensity here. I wish I would have, done a little bit more here. I wish I would have backed off there." And that's the thing I love about the character of it. When you go back and look at it, you can forgive yourself, but you can also compliment yourself at the same time, because you're really evaluating yourself with the age of the people we had that were supposed to be there trying to encourage us, how we would have done it differently, even in conversation, and think about how I spoke with a coach, or how a coach spoke to me and trying to explain to me a situation, or a conflict. And you start to realize really what was good and bad about that. And then you can judge that person, yourself included, as the individual, with an honest pair of eyes.
So if it oh, so
I know I just opened up one on you right
no,
there.
no, no, so I had to be careful, and I have to be careful, because if I go watch stuff and certain stuff, it will keep me up all night, and you can ask anyone that's around me, like, because it eats at me sometimes, like, you have no idea. Like, I feel we've talked about this before. I feel like our time, was cheated in Detroit. Like, we were far better and should have gotten a whole lot more out of our time, and there were things that we had no control over, and that was hard. But, going back and, to answer your question, the one thing that always comes up to me is I was so bent on being, like, winning, and in some regards, I wished I would have let more of my personality out, and been a little bit more, because I just always felt like I was too serious about it, and to just kind of really relax and enjoy it and have fun, and that's really what my personality is like, and I just felt that I was just maybe too uptight sometimes, and could have been a little bit more, I see things of Brett Favre, he goes, "You got any of those left-handed footballs?" and some of that stuff, and he's just a goofball, and I wish I would have been, but that's the one thing, just, I had some challenges at home and with my personal life. They were hard, really hard. They were brutally hard. But I just wished I could have been more of my authentic personality and not been so just that's definitely one thing I wish I would have changed.
Well, I realize that I don't. I'll give you this, right. I don't know if this will provide solace or not, but it wasn't an environment other than in the locker room itself. That was the only place where we could really truly be ourselves and just kind of in our camaraderie around our teammates and around certain people, because you build your groups, right? And but it was hard to operate in that environment because you knew that whatever you were being told wasn't really always on the up and up. And you know when you want to live in a world of transparency, and again, being in a business and being a business owner now, I don't know any other way to be other than, this is what I'm saying. It's not about whether you agree with it, but it's the truth, it's the honesty. And when there are things that are being done and things that are being done, not necessarily that would, I think, benefit the team, it's self-serving, and it's right out in front. There's nothing you can do about it. Think about it. We're in our 20s. I look back, I look at my son
I
now. I
know.
got a 32-year-old son. I have a 33-year-old son. And I'm looking at those guys who have been at the ages we would have been retiring, right? And we would
Right.
consider being
Yeah.
old in the NFL. And these guys, my kids look young to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going in my 20s. We're dealing with people who are like our age or somewhere in that ballpark, because they weren't 30 and 40-year-old coaches at that time, right?
Right.
They were 50, 60, 70-year-old
Mhm.
coaches, guys. And you would think they would have a better way of handling other than my way or the highway. That was the rule. And
Yeah.
because of that, it created so much disconnect and dissension. And you're talking to impressionable young 20-some-year-old kids that we're lost. We don't know what we're really wanting to do and how we're going to do it. And yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to cut out, we're going to show out, but that's when you got to have people who can come in and go, listen, let me pull you to the side. Let's have a conversation. And it's not to coddle us, and it's not to sit there and kind of sit there and kind of be that soft spot to land. But you have to be prepared. There's a prerequisite that needs to come with just beyond just coaching. There's got to be a communication piece. There's got to be a conflict resolution piece, and there's got to be another component. Coaches that have figured that out and have had the long-standing tenure, they've created culture. That's why I even say, when I talk about Mike Tomlin, who I have a lot of admiration for at Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and the Rooneys, and when I went out and met with those families, this isn't throw anything towards any other organization. When he says the standard is a standard, then that was what I was going to now have to grow into, not the volatility of the up and down of the attitudes of the people that you're bringing, who were self-serving, that were bringing things that they thought worked somewhere else, and automatically it was going to supplant. They were going to plant it here, and it's going to work. And I look back and I see how dysfunctional, and I will use the word dysfunctional, it was, and yet we were still having success, if you call it that, going to the playoffs. But we couldn't get any further because the standard wasn't so much that it was to make the playoffs. It was to keep money right. It was to make sure coaches felt good about who they were and their control of this, and power pools with the ownership and all that. It's not a bunch of BS, man. And I look back and I go, what a freaking waste
Yeah.
of opportunity, time. And there weren't teams we couldn't beat, and we could not get over the threshold because people didn't realize all the crap that was going on behind the scenes. And then when we talk about it, it's like, oh, you're bitter. No, you're not bitter. You don't get it back. You don't get it back. And that's why you and I sit here as people, and we have regret, and it bothers us, and we can't let it go between now and the day we die, because it's part of our fabric. And this is who we were. This is what we have waited for from youthfulness and 6 7 years old to get to the pinnacle of your sport and to become the consummate professional in that space, and then have people who are older not know how to even manage the situation and the opportunity they've been given, and then yet hold you responsible and accountable at the highest level that they want to hold themselves. Now, I'm gonna get off my table, and I will sit down with any coach that wants to sit in on this show with you and I and have those conversations of how they handle those situations. Let's see who can sniff that test now that we're adults. And now we're in the mindset of understanding you can't pull the blanket over us and just say because I said so.
So I watched this, I guess it was America's Team. It was the documentary on the Dallas Cowboys and the Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones, and I'm watching this and I'm just like, man, you all have a bunch of first world problems. Seriously, you guys are winning Super Bowls. You got, and you can't even be happy. And I'm just like, go play for the Detroit Lions in the 1990s and talk about real, dysfunction. It just I was just like, wow. I mean, and then I've watched this thing on John Elway and his family. It was hilarious. He goes, "Yeah, we got to go back to the Super Bowl for the fourth time," and his family didn't even want to go to the Super Bowl because he's had such a terrible time at the Super Bowl. And I'm sitting here thinking, "Gosh, I'd have gone to one of those Super Bowl." Just it's just your perspective on things. But and it was very real. This isn't complaining or anything, and self love. I know what it's about. It's about we put our heart and soul into this. We gave everything we had. Whether you can debate about, maybe you could have given more, but I really think at the time we were all in and we just were about winning, and it was just hard to be in a circumstance when I don't know that everyone else was, or at least it wasn't well communicated. We never everyone just never was on the same page with everything, and I think that for me was certainly the biggest challenge of everything.
Right. And it's definitely not beating up in any organization or people. It's just saying, you know what, there were some things that were broken, and the lack of acknowledgement by either those individuals or even if you look back at the organization, the character of a person, a character of a ownership or a business is to accept that, you know what, we just didn't do things as best we could. And when I talked about myself personally and saying, man, I wish there were some things I could have done differently or done a little bit better, that's like, staying a little bit longer in practice, going out and
Right.
working with my defensive backs and seeing if we can have, some time off the field, but also maybe watch film together. Just someone giving me those tools and that advice to say, you know what, go spend a little bit more time doing this. Go in here and work with the tight end. So that way, maybe get in on some of the tight end drills for blocking, since I was going to be more a blocking receiver on the linebackers and stuff like that versus, you're just a big receiver. Make sure you go in and handle that safety or that backer. Like, there's so many things that are the attention to detail. I'm a stickler for detail now. I am a professional. And when you talk about being a professional you can't get the professional part off. Professional means you are a subject matter expert. You are skillful at what you do. You are the person that you can innovate within your position. You can do real time conflict resolution. You can resolve. You can support. You can play your role. Like, think about that. We never did that. It was just
Yeah.
basically shut the hell up and do what I say. Or if you got something to say and it goes wrong, we're going to blame you for it. But it's like, you got to think about it, man. It was so much insecurity. And I say this in hopes that, not that it brings comfort to me or you, because I don't need it. But what it is like, listen, the reason I can enjoy the organization now, being the Detroit Lions, is because it is different. The way in which it operates is different. The way in which it goes about how it handles things is different. And it was not like that. And to try and say you're working with the same type of things, and yet you're worried about you're not addressing why you didn't get certain results. You got to ask yourself that. And then where the character then becomes, when do you come out and say, not me, not you, not the players, we didn't do something right?
If I was gonna do something different, I think, I would in the off season, and I love all this stuff you're talking about because I feel the same way about it. I would say, "Hey, come on, guys. I'll fly you somewhere. Let's go somewhere warm. and let's spend a week and let's just work out. Let's just work on routes, work on concepts, work on techniques, and how to beat a technique and a route, and just kind of break down all the different routes that and just take, I don't know, take 5 or 6 guys and just go and just but do it in kind of where it's just us, and I wished I'd have done that every year. I wished I'd have just spent, because I went off by myself and I went to a warm, I worked out and I did all this stuff, and I threw a football into a net, and it was and it's, that's the one thing. And in fact, I wish I could do it now. I almost want to do it. I almost want to just for the heck of it, just say,
Let's do it, man. I got a couple. I got some miles. We could do some miles. I can use my miles. We can do it. I'm asking you this, man. We were doing that back then.
it'd be fun.
Would you have brought us all in on coach, or would you brought us on first class?
Oh no, I'd have taken care of it. Come on,
You
I would have.
take.
Oh yeah, I would
I'm trying to
have.
remember, man. Like, did I get a watch? Did I get
Yeah.
any? I mean, did I get a meal?
You might have got an attaboy. Attaboy. Good job.
Yeah. I think
Attaboy.
I got a couple pats on the back. I mean, I guess you rewarded me with touchdowns, so I'll take
Yeah.
that. But
I'll
no,
make
man.
up for it. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
I
do
want to
it.
say, man, I just really enjoy, man, just reminiscing about it.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a beating up on anything. It's just that as you get older, you realize some things that weren't done quite right. That people in our age group, they just didn't have the wherewithal to understand that they were void of those assets to be able to do that. That would have made it whole. And I look at a guy like Dan Campbell, and I look at the coaches that they have now, which are players and former players, and it's not just my buddy who philosophically knows how this should work, versus people who have actually been in the trenches and understand the mindset and everything. So they brought it full circle, and so now you have a good mixture of talent on the staff, along with the people in the organization. There still needs to be some diversity and some other things that go on up there. I think that allow us to start to get a little bit more representation inside of that part of the administrative side. But on the locker room and the field side, the proven recipe has been, you got to been there, done that. You can't keep just talking to people about what they should be doing and how they should have done it when you've never done it yourself. And the respect comes from that. And so that's to the Lions, to the organizations that are doing that now. Kudos. And that's why I think we're enjoying seeing the success that they're having.
Yeah, and I hope people listening, you look at a lot of situations with teams and with players, and you always go, there's just certain organizations that just never win, and you wonder, and I asked this question myself, what talent do they have in that building that wasn't really totally utilized and totally maximized? And I think the Lions are a great case study where you talk about, you get it right in your organization, and it's magical how all of a sudden it starts manifesting itself on the field. We had some tremendous teams. I went to the Cincinnati Bengals, and we and I had great teammates there, tremendously talented teammates, and when it all isn't put together the right way, it's just kind of it's an unfortunate thing that talent isn't fully realized in situations, and Herman and I, we certainly lived this in our careers. All right, Herman, it's just been so fun, really. It's
Always.
always fun. Yeah, it's always really fun. Hope that we can do this again soon. So I'd love to have you come back. But
Yeah, we'll do that next time we're doing it, man. We'll make sure you put a little bib on. I'll put a bib on. We'll sit and have our favorite food, our favorite,
oh,
whatever our beverage is. Man, look, come on, man. Love life, live life. You know what? We're only here for this moment in time. I appreciate you, QB1, wide receiver one, and all the players that we played with, man. Because without them, we couldn't be us. And like I said, I wouldn't change. I would change if I could some things, but for the most part, what has happened is formed who I am as a person. So, and it's given me an appreciation for how I handle situations and handle people now, given having to gone through some of the things I've gone through just in life in general. So, appreciate you, man, and everything that you've done.
thank you. Likewise. Yeah, it's a great idea. We'll just have lunch and we'll invite everyone to listen in. It's a good one. All right, there he is, none other than the legendary Herman Moore. I'm telling you, he was always open, and I'm not kidding about that. It was always a pleasure to play and go to battle with Herman. We'll have to see. We're about done for the day, so thank you so much for tuning in to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. Until then, we'll see you then.
Rogue Media Sports.